Hi, in this video I want to take just a moment to help you understand a few different types of apps that you'll find in the App Store. Now, I'm not talking about apps for astronomy or apps to edit movies. I'm talking about important categorizations for how apps operate. Okay, the first one I want to show you is that there's a difference between apps that are free and apps that you have to pay for. I've got here a search for astronomy apps, and just on this page you can see that there are various apps that cost me something. Their little button has a price on it, $4.99. When I tap it, it turns into a buy app button. There are also apps that are free. They say free on the button, and when I tap that, it actually changes to install app because I don't actually have to buy it. Free is free and paid is paid. There is an exception though. Both free apps, as well as apps you've already paid for, can offer what are called in-app purchases, which means that while you're using the app, it can ask you if you want to buy something. A lot of games are like this. There are games where, for example, you're flying airplanes and you have the ability to buy parts for your airplane using real money, and you can do that inside of the app using your Apple ID account. There are other apps, however, which use this functionality as part of what's called the freemium business model. Maybe you haven't heard this before, but freemium is a term for a lot of services where you can do basic stuff for free. But then, if you want to actually get better services, you have to pay a certain amount of money. Apple's iCloud is actually like that. You get 5 gigabytes for free, but if you want more, you have to pay for it. The popular app Paper, which is a drawing app, is like that as well. When you download it for free, you get one drawing tool. But then if you want to get others, like a pencil or a paintbrush, you have to pay for them. That's called freemium. So be aware, even a free app can ask you to pay money. But once again, it's never going to be able to take your money without you agreeing to it. The other distinction I want to make is between apps that are created specifically for the iPad and ones that are not. So when I do a search on my iPad, you'll notice that it actually breaks my results into two categories, labeled iPad apps and iPhone apps. iPhone apps are ones that are written for Apple's iPhone and Apple iPod Touch, which have a smaller screen. You can use these apps. They run just fine on your iPad. However, because they were designed without the larger screen of the iPad in mind, they're going to look a little bit different. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to switch over to an app called Cards, which Apple creates. You'll notice that in the bottom corner of my screen, I've got a little button that says 1x. If I tap it, notice that it gets smaller, and now the button says 2x. What happens is apps that are designed for the iPhone will show up on your iPad, but they'll run at the small size of the iPhone. Clearly that wastes a lot of space. Tapping the 2x button moves you into this fuller screen mode, but if you take a close look, you can see that the quality of the graphics isn't that great. That's because what the iPad is doing is actually doubling everything, and that doesn't always yield great results. Now, if there's an iPhone app that you love, you can still use it, and it will work just fine. But let me switch back to the App Store. At the top of the screen here, there's an area labeled iPad apps. Apps that show up there are going to have been explicitly designed for the size of the iPad screen, meaning they will always fill and use the entire screen. Now, there's a place that's halfway between. Notice this area that says the plus sign indicates an app designed for both iPhone and iPad. You will find that throughout the App Store. And on buttons for apps, you will see the little plus sign. So notice how some of the ones down there in the iPhone app have the plus sign. Well, they're actually the same ones as above in the iPad apps. But whenever you have a plus sign, you know that you will get a version that will work full screen on your iPad with no problem, but also work just fine on your iPhone if you happen to have one. So keep in mind, there are free apps, there are paid apps, but every app can ask for money. Part of the time, that's part of the freemium business model. And there are also apps that are designed for the iPad, ones that are designed for the iPhone, and ones that work on both. Those are called universal apps. Now you're ready to start downloading apps to your heart's content.